The sound of a body hitting concrete cut through the pulsing bass outside Elysium, the city's most exclusive nightclub. 19-year-old Alex Thompson lay sprawled on the ground, his specialized crutches scattered beside him while a towering bouncer stood over him with crossed arms and a face twisted in disgust. Blood trickled from Alex's scraped palms as he struggled against his cerebral palsy to right himself. The waiting crowd froze, some turning away uncomfortable, others raising phones to record what would become tomorrow's viral sensation. From the shadows of a sleek black car, a long-haired figure watched with intense focus, eyes missing nothing. As he stepped toward the unfolding scene, no one yet realized how this sidewalk confrontation would transform countless lives. A teenager with dreams, a cruel bouncer, and a Hollywood star about to change everything with an unexpected act of justice that would shake the foundations of privilege and exclusion. Alex Thompson had never wanted special treatment, just the same chances everyone else had. Born with cerebral palsy that primarily affected his legs and partially his right arm, he'd spent his childhood being defined by what he couldn't do. Couldn't run. Couldn't play sports. Couldn't navigate stairs without help. But music had changed everything for him. At 13, he discovered that his mind could create rhythms his body couldn't dance to. His parents had scraped together enough for a basic DJ controller for his 14th birthday, and from that moment, Alex lived to mix tracks. In his bedroom studio, with headphones on and fingers dancing across controls, his disability vanished. There, he wasn't the kid with CP. He was AXT, creator of beats that made people move. Maya had always been his champion. At 24, she'd become more parent than sister after they lost their mom to cancer and their dad retreated into 60-hour work weeks to pay the medical bills. When classmates mocked his awkward gait, she taught him comebacks sharp enough to silence them. When teachers underestimated him, she fought for his placement in advanced classes. When their father said a DJ career wasn't realistic, she helped Alex build a YouTube channel that now had over 50,000 subscribers. Tonight was supposed to be the culmination of years of dreaming. Anton Hayes, the legendary DJ whose techniques Alex had studied religiously, was playing a rare set at Elysium. Maya had surprised Alex with tickets 2 months ago. "We're actually going to meet him," Alex had said in disbelief. Reading the VIP pass Maya had somehow secured through her job at a music promotion company. "You're going to meet him," Maya corrected. "And he's going to hear your demo. I've already arranged it." They'd spent weeks preparing. Alex practicing his introduction until it flowed without the stutter that sometimes emerged when he was nervous. Maya helping him select his best tracks and press a special vinyl record as a gift for Anton. Alex even worked with his physical therapist on standing longer periods without his crutches, determined to appear as capable as possible during those crucial few minutes. What Alex never prepared for was being denied entry altogether. That morning, he'd stood before his mirror, practicing what to say when he finally met his idol. "Mr. Hayes, your Boundless album changed my approach to beat matching." He rehearsed different variations, trying to find words that showed respect without sounding desperate. Maya watched from the doorway, smiling. "Just be yourself. Your music speaks for itself." "Easy for you to say," Alex replied, adjusting his collar. "You don't trip over your own tongue when you're nervous." "No, I just spilled coffee on the CEO last week," she laughed. "We're all disasters sometimes, Alex. Even Anton Hayes probably has toilet paper stick to his shoe occasionally." The image made Alex laugh, releasing some tension. As Maya helped him into their father's borrowed car, nicer than their usual ride, a special concession for the special night, Alex felt ready. For once, his disability seemed like a footnote rather than the headline of his story. Alex had been fighting perceptions his entire life. The pitying smiles from strangers. The way people sometimes spoke louder to him, as if his cerebral palsy affected his hearing. The carefully lowered expectations from teachers who were surprised when he excelled in advanced classes. The countless times he'd been told what he couldn't or shouldn't attempt. Music had been his escape, but also his statement. Each beat he crafted, each track he mixed, carried a message beyond its melody. "I am more than what you see." His online followers never saw his crutches, they only heard his talent. His SoundCloud page had comments from around the world, people who had no idea about his disability connecting with his music on a pure, unfiltered level. The growing recognition had begun to feel like validation. Last month, a small indie label had reached out about possibly distributing some of his work. A local radio station had played one of his remixes. His dream of making music professionally had started to feel possible rather than just fantasy. Meeting Anton Hayes was meant to be the next step, a chance to get guidance from someone who had made it, who could see past limitations to potential. Maya had spent months making the connection, calling in favors, promising her boss extra hours, all to get Alex those precious few minutes with his idol. Tonight, Maya had said as they drove toward the glittering downtown, everything changes. She had been right, but not in any way either of them could have imagined. The evening that was supposed to launch Alex's music career would instead become something far more transformative, not just for him, but for countless others who would soon learn his name. Sometimes the universe has different plans, and sometimes those plans arrive in unexpected packages, like a chance encounter with a famous actor outside the very club that tried to shut him out. The crowd parted as a man stepped forward. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a black blazer over a dark t-shirt, and boots that had seen better days. His long dark hair was slightly disheveled, and several days' worth of stubble shadowed his jaw. Despite his casual appearance, something about him commanded attention. Those closest to him began whispering, recognition dawning on their faces. "Is that? No way. It's him." The man knelt beside Alex, ignoring the growing murmurs around them. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice gentle but direct. Alex, still processing what was happening, shook his head slightly. "Just my pride," he managed. The stranger nodded in understanding, then offered his hand. "Mind if I help you up?" There was no pity in his eyes, no awkward discomfort, just one human offering assistance to another. Alex took the offered hand, and with Maya's help on his other side, regained his footing. Someone from the crowd had retrieved his fallen crutch, passing it forward with newfound helpfulness. Once Alex was steady, the man turned to face Marcus. The bouncer had finally recognized him, his expression shifting from arrogance to uncertainty. "Mr. Reeves," Marcus began, his voice losing its edge. "We didn't know you were coming tonight. I can escort you right in." "That won't be necessary," Keanu Reeves replied evenly. "I'd rather understand why this young man was denied entry and then pushed to the ground." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, it's club policy. We have safety concerns about—" "Safety concerns?" Keanu repeated, raising an eyebrow. "The only safety incident I've witnessed is you assaulting a paying customer." By now, phones were raised throughout the crowd, recording every word. Maya stood protectively beside her brother, watching the scene unfold with disbelief. "I didn't assault anyone," Marcus protested, growing defensive. "He tried to force his way in, and I was doing my job." "Your job is to protect the club's patrons, not become the threat they need protection from," Keanu responded, his voice remaining calm but taking on an edge of steel. "Where I come from, gentlemen don't push people with disabilities to the ground. Ever." A flush crept up Marcus's neck. "Look, Mr. Reeves, there's clearly been a misunderstanding. Why don't you and your friends come inside, and we'll sort this out? Drinks on the house." "We're not friends yet," Keanu corrected, glancing at Alex and Maya. "We've just met. But I'd like to know their names." "I'm Maya Thompson," Maya said quickly. "This is my brother Alex." Keanu nodded, then turned back to Marcus. "Well, Maya and Alex Thompson had VIP passes for tonight. Before we discuss anything else, they need to be admitted as the paying customers they are." Marcus hesitated, looking increasingly uncomfortable as the crowd watched. Finally, with obvious reluctance, he unhooked the velvet rope. "Fine. They can come in." "And an apology would be appropriate," Keanu added. The bouncer's jaw tightened, but with dozens of phones recording, he had little choice. "Sorry for the misunderstanding," he muttered, not making eye contact with Alex. "That's a start," Keanu said. He turned to Alex and Maya. "Would you mind if I joined you? I'd like to speak with the management about what happened here." Alex, still somewhat stunned, could only nod. Maya found her voice first. "Of course, Mr. Reeves. Thank you for stepping in." As they moved past the velvet rope, the crowd erupted in whispers and exclamations. Alex could hear his name being mentioned alongside Keanu's, could feel the story already spreading throughout the line and beyond. For once, he wasn't being defined by his disability but by this unexpected moment of justice. Inside the club's entrance, a sleek-suited manager rushed forward, alerted by security about the commotion outside. "Mr. Reeves! What an unexpected honor," the manager gushed, pointedly ignoring Alex and Maya. "We can offer you our best table with complimentary bottle service." "Actually," Keanu interrupted, "I'd like to speak with the owner." "Now." Victor Stone's office stood in stark contrast to the pulsing club below. Soundproofed walls muted the bass to a distant heartbeat, and tasteful modern art hung on walls painted a deep, confident red. Glass awards for entrepreneurship lined custom shelves, carefully lit to ensure visitors couldn't miss them. Victor himself matched his surroundings: expensive suit, carefully styled salt and pepper hair, and a watch that cost more than most cars. At 45, he had built Elysium from a struggling bar into the city's premier nightclub, a transformation he attributed to his strict door policies and curated clientele. "Mr. Reeves," Victor said, rising from behind his imposing desk with practiced charm. "What an unexpected pleasure. I understand there was some confusion at the entrance." His eyes flickered briefly, dismissively, over Alex and Maya before returning to Keanu. "Not confusion," Keanu corrected. "Discrimination. And assault." Victor's smile tightened. "Strong accusations. My staff are well-trained professionals." "Your professional pushed this young man to the ground for trying to use his VIP pass," Keanu replied, "after first attempting to deny him entry because of his disability." Victor sighed, gesturing for them to sit in the sleek leather chairs facing his desk. Alex maneuvered carefully into one, propping his crutches against the arm. "If there was any misunderstanding, I apologize," Victor said smoothly. "Marcus has been with us for years. He's usually an excellent judge of appropriate clientele." "Appropriate," Maya echoed, unable to contain herself. "My brother paid for VIP passes. We were on the list to meet Anton Hayes. The only inappropriate thing was your bouncer's behavior." Victor's expression cooled. "Young lady, running a venue of this caliber requires difficult decisions. Our clients pay premium prices for a certain atmosphere." "An atmosphere that excludes people with disabilities?" Keanu asked. "That's not what I said," Victor replied sharply. "But realistically, a crowded nightclub presents genuine hazards for someone with—" He gestured vaguely toward Alex's crutches. "For someone like me," Alex finished, finding his voice. "You can say it. But those hazards should be my choice to navigate, not your excuse to discriminate." Victor leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Admirable sentiment. However, my first responsibility is to my business and the majority of my customers." "Your first responsibility is to follow the law," Maya countered. "The Americans with Disabilities Act isn't optional." A flash of irritation crossed Victor's face. "I'm well aware of legal requirements. Elysium exceeds accessibility codes. But that doesn't mean every space is appropriate for every person." Keanu had been watching this exchange quietly, his expression thoughtful. Now he leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Stone, what would you say the club is worth?" The unexpected question hung in the air. Victor blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. "Excuse me. Elysium. The business. The property. What's its market value?" Keanu clarified. Victor gave a short, incredulous laugh. "It's not for sale. Everything has a price," Keanu replied calmly. "Especially businesses built on image." Curious now, Victor tilted his head. "Hypothetically, around 20 million, given the prime location, established clientele, and projected earnings." Keanu nodded, as if confirming something to himself. "I'd like to buy it." The room fell silent. Maya's mouth literally dropped open. Alex sat perfectly still, certain he'd misheard. Victor recovered first, laughing more genuinely this time. "Mr. Reeves, I appreciate your concern for these young people, but making dramatic gestures isn't necessary. I'll comp their tickets, offer VIP treatment, and personally ensure they meet Anton Hayes. Problem solved." "That addresses tonight," Keanu acknowledged. "But not your club's culture or your bouncer's behavior." "I'm serious about the offer." Victor's smile faded as he studied Keanu's face. "You're actually serious." "I am. Why would you want to buy a nightclub?" especially one you've just accused of discrimination. Keanu glanced at Alex before answering. Because places like this matter. They shape culture. Set standards. When you exclude people based on appearances or abilities, it ripples outward. I'd rather create different ripples. Victor leaned back, reassessing the situation. Even if I were interested, which I'm not saying I am, these deals take weeks, sometimes months of negotiation, due diligence, paperwork. Or they can happen quickly when both parties are motivated, Keanu countered. I have a legal team that can draw up preliminary papers tonight. We can wire a good faith deposit immediately. Tonight, Victor repeated, disbelief evident in his voice. Tonight, Keanu confirmed. Before videos of your bouncer assaulting a disabled teenager go viral and your club's reputation takes a hit no rebrand could fix. The threat wasn't stated explicitly, but it hung in the air. Victor's eyes narrowed. That sounds remarkably like blackmail, Mr. Reeves. Not at all, Keanu replied evenly. Just acknowledging reality. Those videos already exist. I saw at least 20 phones recording outside. I'm offering a solution that could benefit everyone. Victor drummed his fingers on his desk, calculating. 20 million is a starting point for negotiations, not a final number. 22 then, Keanu responded without hesitation, with the condition that ownership transfers immediately upon signing preliminary agreements. Maya and Alex exchanged glances of disbelief. The conversation had taken a turn so surreal it felt like a movie script rather than their actual lives. Mr. Reeves, Alex said quietly, you don't have to do this. We just wanted to attend the show. Keanu turned to him with a gentle smile. Sometimes opportunities present themselves when you least expect them. I've been considering investing in entertainment venues for a while. He turned back to Victor. 22 million, Mr. Stone. Decision tonight. Victor stood, walking to the window overlooking the dance floor below. The club was at capacity now, bodies moving under pulsing lights, drinks flowing, money being spent. His empire, built over a decade of careful cultivation. Let's say I considered this absurd proposal, he said finally. I would need proof of funds before even discussing terms. Keanu pulled out his phone. Give me 10 minutes. The next hour unfolded with dizzying speed. Keanu stepped outside to make several calls, speaking in low tones while Maya and Alex waited in stunned silence. Victor alternated between pacing his office and making his own calls, his expression growing increasingly serious as the minutes passed. When Keanu returned, he was accompanied virtually by his lawyer on a video call and physically by the club's manager, who looked both confused and concerned. My financial team has prepared a wire transfer for a $5 million good faith deposit, Keanu explained, placing his phone on Victor's desk so the lawyer could see everyone. The remaining $17 million will transfer upon final paperwork completion, which my team estimates can happen within 72 hours. Victor had changed during Keanu's absence. The smooth, condescending club owner had been replaced by a sharper, more focused businessman. My lawyers advise against such a rush transaction, he said, though his tone suggested this was a negotiating stance rather than a genuine objection. Understandable, Keanu conceded. We can withdraw the offer if you prefer, and revisit after tonight's events have played out publicly. The implied threat hung in the air. Victor's jaw tightened. That won't be necessary, he said finally. But I want 23 million, not 22. And certain guarantees about the staff. Most of them had nothing to do with tonight's incident. 22.5, Keanu countered. And I'll retain all staff pending review, except for the bouncer involved directly. Victor considered for a moment, then nodded. Acceptable. What followed was a flurry of activity. Preliminary agreements were drafted and emailed. Electronic signatures were applied. Phone calls were made to confirm the initial transfer of funds. The club manager was instructed to gather the senior staff for an emergency meeting. Through it all, Alex and Maya watched in astonishment as ownership of one of the city's most exclusive nightclubs changed hands in real time. All because of what had happened on the sidewalk outside. Is this actually happening? Maya whispered to Alex at one point. I think so, he whispered back. But I'm still not entirely convinced I didn't hit my head when I fell and this is all some weird coma dream. As the last document was signed, a temporary operating agreement that would remain in effect until the final purchase was completed. Victor stood and extended his hand to Keanu. Congratulations, Mr. Reeves. You now own the most exclusive nightclub in the city. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I hope your inclusive vision works out for you. Thank you, Keanu replied, shaking the offered hand. I'll have your office cleared out by tomorrow afternoon. Victor nodded stiffly, gathered his personal items from the desk, and paused at the door. One piece of advice, from someone who built this place from nothing. People come here to escape reality, not confront it. Remember that. After he left, Keanu turned to Alex and Maya with a slightly sheepish smile. That was not how I expected my evening to go. Join the club, Alex laughed. The absurdity of the situation finally breaking through his shock. Or I guess technically, you own the club now, so we're joining you. What happens next? Maya asked, still processing everything they'd witnessed. Keanu glanced at his watch. Anton Hayes goes on in 30 minutes. I believe you had a meeting scheduled with him. He smiled at Alex's expression of surprise. But first, I think we need to make a few immediate changes to club policy. The transfer of power happened with surprising speed. Within minutes, security earpieces buzzed with the news. Staff members whispered to each other behind the bar. Marcus, still stationed at the door, received a terse message from his supervisor that left him visibly shaken. As Keanu led Alex and Maya back toward the main club floor, the atmosphere had subtly shifted. Staff members who had previously ignored Alex now nodded respectfully. Patrons who might have stared or avoided him seemed suddenly unsure how to react when he was in the company of both a celebrity and, apparently, their new boss. This is surreal, Alex murmured, as a bartender who had barely acknowledged him earlier rushed to offer complimentary drinks. Money changes things quickly, Keanu observed, declining the drink offer with a polite smile. But what matters is whether those changes go beyond surface courtesy. The club manager approached, looking nervous but professional. Mr. Reeves, the staff has been gathered in the back room as requested, and Mr. Hayes' manager has been informed of the change in ownership. He's asking if this will affect tonight's performance. Tell him the show goes on exactly as planned, Keanu replied. With one addition, Alex Thompson will be meeting with Mr. Hayes afterward, as originally arranged. The manager nodded, then hesitated. And Marcus? He's asking what he should do. Keanu's expression hardened slightly. Tell him to join us at the staff meeting. I think it's important everyone hears what happens next. The staff meeting in the club's back room was tense. Employees exchanged nervous glances as they waited, rumors already circulating about the confrontation outside and the mysterious meeting in Victor's office. When Keanu walked in with Alex and Maya, the whispers stopped abruptly. Thank you all for gathering on such short notice, Keanu began, his voice calm but authoritative. As of 20 minutes ago, I've acquired ownership of Elysium. There will be changes, some immediate and others over time. He explained briefly what had happened outside, not naming Marcus specifically but making the situation clear. Some staff members looked uncomfortably at their feet. Others glanced toward the corner where Marcus stood with his arms crossed defensively. First change. Effective immediately, this club's door policy will prioritize respect and safety for all patrons, regardless of appearance, ability, or social status. Keanu continued. Discrimination of any kind won't be tolerated. He turned to address Marcus directly. Unfortunately, that means we'll need to part ways tonight. Your final pay will include 2 weeks severance, but your employment here is terminated. Marcus's face reddened with anger. You can't just... I can, Keanu interrupted, his voice still level but with unmistakable firmness. And I am. What you did tonight wasn't just morally wrong, it was legally indefensible. Looking around the room, Keanu addressed the entire staff again. I understand most of you had nothing to do with this incident. Your jobs are secure as we transition. But I want to be absolutely clear about the new standard. This club will be a place where everyone feels welcome, where the only VIP treatment is based on the tickets people purchase, not how they look or move. A bartender near the front raised her hand tentatively. Mr. Reeves, will this affect our... the club has always marketed itself on exclusivity. Won't being open to everyone change the business model? Good question, Keanu nodded. Exclusivity based on ticket price or reservation. That's legitimate business. Exclusivity based on prejudice? That's not just wrong, it's bad business. Think about it. How many talented people, influential people, people with money to spend have been turned away because they didn't fit someone's narrow idea of who belongs? The staff exchanged glances, considering his words. Keanu continued, the club will still be exclusive in the ways that matter. Exceptional music, premium service, special experiences. We're just removing the artificial barriers that have nothing to do with creating a great night out. A security team member spoke up. What about safety concerns? That's legitimate for people with mobility issues. Alex, who had been quietly observing, decided to answer. I've never expected places to rearrange their entire setup for me. I just want the chance to navigate spaces on my own terms. Most people with disabilities feel the same way. We're pretty good at figuring out what we can and can't handle. Maya added, and there's a huge difference between someone genuinely concerned about safety and someone using safety as an excuse to discriminate. Keanu nodded in agreement. Exactly. We'll make reasonable accommodations where needed, but mostly it's about attitude, treating everyone with basic dignity and respect. Marcus, who had been silently fuming, finally erupted. This is ridiculous. You're buying a club you know nothing about and turning it into some kind of charity showcase. These people paid to get away from. From what, exactly? Keanu cut in, his voice sharper now. From people who look different, move differently, who might remind them that the world isn't made up solely of people just like them. He moved closer to Marcus. That's not escapism. That's prejudice. And it stops being the business model of this club tonight. He turned back to address the room. Anyone who can't work under these new principles is welcome to leave with 2-week severance. For those who stay, I promise this. We're going to create something special here. A place that's both exclusive and inclusive in all the right ways. The mood in the room had shifted. Where there had been anxiety, there was now a mixture of uncertainty and cautious optimism. Change was coming, but perhaps it wasn't something to fear. For tonight, Keanu continued, the show goes on as scheduled. Anton Hayes performs in 20 minutes. All VIP reservations will be honored, including Alex's meeting with Hayes afterwards. He paused, then added with a slight smile, and let's make one thing official right now. Alex and Maya Thompson are permanent VIPs at this establishment. Their names should be added to the permanent guest list. A ripple of approval went through the room. Even those uncertain about the changes could appreciate the poetic justice of this gesture. As the meeting broke up, staff members returned to their posts with a new energy. The news spread quickly through the club. Elysium had a new owner, a new philosophy, and a new story that was already becoming legend. Alex found himself in the surreal position of being apologized to by staff members who had ignored him earlier. The very space that had rejected him was now transforming around him, becoming something new because he had refused to accept being pushed aside. Marcus stormed out, pausing only to throw his earpiece onto the bar. As he passed Alex, he muttered something under his breath, but for once, Alex didn't care about the words of someone who had tried to make him feel small. Ready to enjoy the show? Keanu asked, as they made their way to the VIP section beside the DJ booth. Alex nodded, still processing everything that had happened in the past 2 hours. I came here tonight hoping to change my life, he said. I just never imagined it would happen like this. Anton Hayes was a legend in the electronic music world. At 35, he had revolutionized the DJ scene with innovative mixing techniques and compositions that bridged the gap between underground authenticity and mainstream appeal. His 6'3" frame, crowned with distinctive blue-tipped dreadlocks, commanded attention as he took his position behind the turntables. The club erupted in cheers as the first beats dropped. Alex watched, transfixed, as his musical idol worked. Hayes' hands moved with practiced precision over the equipment, creating seamless transitions between tracks that kept the energy building in waves. This was what Alex had dreamed of since he first discovered electronic music, not just witnessing it, but understanding the craft at this level. Halfway through the set, a club manager approached their VIP table. He leaned down to speak to Keanu over the pounding music. Mr. Reeves, Mr. Hayes' manager wants to confirm the meeting with Alex is still on, and... The manager hesitated, They've heard about the ownership change. Mr. Hayes is curious about meeting you as well. Keanu nodded. The meeting is definitely still on. He turned to Alex. This is your night. What happens in that meeting should be about your music, not the drama that happened earlier. Alex appreciated the sentiment, but reality was setting in. He's going to know. Everyone knows by now. It'll be all anyone wants to talk about. Then use it, Maya suggested. You have his attention in a way you never would have otherwise. Keanu studied Alex thoughtfully. Your sister's right. But there might be an even better approach. He turned back to the manager. Can you ask Hayes' team a question? Would he be open to letting Alex play a short set after their meeting? Just 5 minutes. Alex's eyes widened. What? No, I can't. I'm not ready to. You are, Maya interrupted. You've been ready for years. The manager looked uncertain but nodded. I'll ask, but Mr. Hayes is very particular about who touches his equipment. As the manager left, Alex turned to Keanu in panic. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is Anton Hayes we're talking about. Professional DJs wait years for a chance to open for him. And you've been preparing for years, Keanu pointed out. Maya told me about your YouTube channel while we were waiting for the lawyers earlier. 50,000 subscribers isn't amateur level. Before Alex could protest further, the manager returned, looking surprised. Mr. Hayes said yes. He wants to hear Alex's tracks during their meeting, and if he likes what he hears, Alex can do a 10-minute set before Hayes' final segment. The next hour passed in a blur. As Hayes' main set ended to thunderous applause, Alex was escorted backstage to a small green room where Anton Hayes was cooling down, toweling sweat from his face and checking his phone. So you're the kid who got Keanu Reeves to buy a nightclub, Hayes said by way of greeting, looking up with interest. That's one hell of an introduction. Alex felt his carefully rehearsed opener evaporate from his mind. That wasn't exactly the plan, he managed. Hayes laughed. Plans are overrated. Some of my best sets came from equipment failures that forced me to improvise. He gestured to a seat. I'm told you make music. Let's hear it. With trembling hands, Alex pulled out his phone and connected it to the room's sound system. He had selected 3 short segments of his best work, transitions that showcased his technical skill and musical sensibility without taking too much time. As the first beats filled the room, Hayes closed his eyes, listening intently. His head began to nod almost imperceptibly, an unconscious reaction to the rhythm. Alex watched nervously, trying to gauge the reaction. When the third segment ended, Hayes opened his eyes. Not bad. Reminds me of my early work, but with some interesting new patterns in the bass line. How long have you been mixing? Since I was 14, Alex replied. Your Boundless album was what got me started. Hayes smiled. One of my favorites too. He studied Alex for a moment. You know, there's something poetic about what happened tonight. Music is supposed to bring people together, break down barriers. Instead, this place tried to build new ones. He stood up. Let's change that. 10 minutes on my decks. Show this crowd what they almost missed. What followed was simultaneously the most terrifying and exhilarating experience of Alex's life. Standing behind the legendary DJ booth, thousands of clubgoers watching with curious eyes, Alex felt a moment of panic. His hands hovered over the unfamiliar high-end equipment, doubt creeping in. Then he caught Maya's eye in the crowd. She gave him a thumbs up. Beside her, Keanu nodded encouragingly. Alex took a deep breath and pressed play on his opening track. The first 30 seconds were shaky, his nervousness evident in slightly mistimed transitions. But then something clicked. The music took over, and Alex found himself in that familiar mental space where his disability, his anxiety, and everything else fell away. There was only the beat, the crowd, and the pure joy of creation. When his 10 minutes ended, the crowd roared with approval. People who had earlier watched his humiliation now cheered his talent. Anton Hayes returned to the booth, gave Alex a genuine handshake of respect, and leaned into the microphone. Remember that name, people. Alex Thompson. Because talent comes in all forms, and tonight proves you can't judge who belongs by how they look or move. By morning, the story had exploded online. Dozens of cell phone videos captured the incident from different angles. Alex being pushed to the ground, Keanu stepping in, and later, Alex's surprising debut on the turntables. Hashtags were trending. Hashtag Stand With Alex. Hashtag Keanu Buys Club. Hashtag Accessibility Matters. Alex woke to his phone buzzing constantly with notifications. News outlets were requesting interviews. His social media followers had more than tripled overnight. The video of his 10-minute set, captured by clubgoers, had gone viral with millions of views and thousands of comments praising both his talent and resilience. "You're famous," Maya said, bringing him coffee as he scrolled through the overwhelming flood of messages. "How does it feel?" "Weird," Alex admitted. "Half of these people were watching me fall and did nothing. Now they're all supportive because Keanu Reeves got involved." "People follow examples," Maya said thoughtfully. "Most want to do the right thing but don't know how or are afraid to be first. Keanu showed them it was okay to stand up." Alex's phone rang. An unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Alex? This is Jared Kim from Pulse Records. I saw your set online. Very impressive. We're expanding our roster of electronic artists and would love to talk about working together." It was the first of several similar calls that morning. Music promoters, club owners, even a podcast wanting to interview him about accessibility in the music scene. The incident had catapulted him into a spotlight he never expected. Around noon, Keanu called. "How are you holding up?" he asked, sounding genuinely concerned about the sudden attention. "Still processing," Alex admitted. "This is crazy. Thank you doesn't seem adequate for everything you did." "You don't need to thank me," Keanu replied. "What happened was wrong, and I was in a position to address it. Simple as that." "Still, buying an entire nightclub is a bit beyond addressing the situation," Alex laughed. "Actually, about that, I've been thinking. The club needs a new management team, people who understand both the business and the importance of creating an inclusive space." There was a pause. "Maya mentioned you're studying business alongside your music work." Alex sat up straighter. "Are you offering me a job?" "More like an internship with potential," Keanu clarified. "You'd work with the management team, learn the business side, and, if you're interested, have regular DJ slots to develop your music career. Maya too, if she wants. I heard she's in music promotion." The conversation continued, discussing possibilities that would have seemed impossible just 24 hours earlier. By the time Alex hung up, his life had reconfigured itself into an entirely new shape, one with opportunities he had always wanted but never thought would be available to him. Later that afternoon, a more sobering note emerged. Former bouncer Marcus Jeffries gave a defensive interview to a local news station, claiming he had been just doing his job and was now the victim of cancel culture. The comment section beneath the online video was battleground of opposing viewpoints, some defending the club's right to maintain standards, others condemning the discriminatory behavior. "There's always resistance to change," Maya noted, reading the comments over Alex's shoulder. "But look at the ratio. For every person defending him, 20 are calling him out." The most surprising development came that evening. Victor Stone, the former owner, sent a formal statement to news outlets expressing regret for the unfortunate incident and announcing that he would be donating a portion of his proceeds from the club sale to organizations supporting accessibility in entertainment venues. "Convenient timing," Maya said skeptically when they read the press release. "Maybe," Alex allowed. "But if shame and self-interest lead to positive changes, I'll take it." 2 days after the incident, Keanu organized a meeting at the temporarily closed club to discuss its transformation. Architects presented plans for improved accessibility features. Marketing experts proposed a rebranding campaign focusing on inclusion without sacrificing the exclusivity of a premium experience. And at the center of it all was Alex, no longer an outsider looking in, but an integral part of creating something new. 6 months later, the club formerly known as Elysium reopened under a new name, Limitless. The grand opening attracted celebrities, influencers, and music industry insiders, all curious about the venue that had become symbolic of a larger cultural conversation about accessibility and inclusion. The physical space had been transformed. Sleek ramps now complemented the stairs. The VIP section was accessible without assistance. The dance floor included a raised platform where people using mobility devices could enjoy the music with the same elevated view as standing patrons. But more importantly, the club's spirit had changed. Behind the main DJ booth, Alex adjusted his headphones, ready for his set. At 20, he had become one of the club's resident DJs, performing weekly to growing crowds that came specifically to hear him. His debut EP, released under a small but respected label, had charted on several electronic music platforms. Maya stood nearby, now working as the club's event coordinator, watching her brother with undisguised pride. As Alex began his set, the crowd responded enthusiastically. From a corner of the VIP section, Keanu watched with a satisfied smile. He visited occasionally, preferring to stay in the background while the club established its new identity. The investment had proven successful beyond the financial return. Limitless had become a model that other venues were beginning to emulate. After the set, Keanu approached Alex as he stepped away from the booth. "Impressive as always," he said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Thanks for coming," Alex replied. "Still feels surreal sometimes, being on this side of the booth." "You belong there," Keanu said simply. "You always did." Alex nodded, looking out over the diverse crowd enjoying the music, the space, the night. People of all abilities moving to the same beat. "It's funny," he reflected. "I came here that night hoping music would change my life. Instead, we ended up changing something much bigger." Keanu smiled. "That's how real change happens. One person refuses to accept the world as it is. Then another stands beside them. Soon enough, everyone sees what's possible." And in that moment, under the pulsing lights of a club that had once rejected him but now bore his influence in its very design, Alex understood that sometimes barriers fall not with a push, but with the courage to stand back up when you've been pushed down.